You have lived too long trying to please, bowing your head to avoid conflict, silencing what you really think for fear of discomfort. That attitude has stolen something more valuable than anything, your dignity. And you know it, because in the silence of the night, when no one sees you, you feel that something inside you screams to recover what you have lost. This video is not a refuge of soft words. It is a blow of reality, a reminder that true strength is not measured in fake smiles or useless sacrifices, but in the ability to stand firm when the world wants to bend you. Stoicism teaches it with brutal clarity. Freedom begins from within. You cannot respect the world if you do not learn to respect yourself first. You cannot build healthy relationships if you continue living from dependence and justification. Recovering dignity is to face your pain, stop begging for approval, and dare to be coherent, even if it hurts, even if it discomforts, even if it leaves you alone for a while. This video is an aggressive and necessary call. Stop giving in where you should not. Stop giving explanations that no one deserves. Stop hiding your voice for fear of losing others' acceptance, because the only thing you lose in that process is yourself. Stay until the end, because what you are going to hear are not soft advices. They are stoic lessons that, if you dare to practice them, will change the way you walk, talk, and stand in life. Here begins the return to your true strength, dignity. 1. Let go of the need for approval. It's like looking at yourself in a foggy mirror and searching for your face without being able to distinguish it clearly. The figure is there, but it's covered by the fog of others' approval. When you live seeking everyone's acceptance, what happens is that the reflection ceases to be yours. It becomes a mosaic of expectations, opinions, and judgments from others that have little or nothing to do with who you really are. This is the most subtle trap, the need for approval, an invisible prison that has no bars, but locks millions into a life they didn't choose. And this is where you have to open your eyes once and for all, because as long as you keep living to please, you will be denying your own dignity. The problem with seeking approval is that it's never enough. There will always be someone who doesn't like what you say, what you do, or what you think. And when you make their acceptance your sustenance, you become an emotional beggar, extending your hand in the hope of receiving some crumbs of validation. Is that really what you deserve? The answer is no. Stoicism teaches that true freedom begins when your worth no longer depends on the gaze of others, when your compass is centered on what is under your control, your actions, your principles, your consistency. To let go of this need, the first thing is to identify when you are seeking it. Ask yourself honestly, am I about to do this because I believe it's right, or because I hope for applause? If the answer points to the latter, you know you are giving away your power. The second step is to get used to the discomfort of rejection. You can't pretend to be free if the fear of displeasing paralyzes you, and it is precisely in that uncomfortable friction where your character is tempered. Start with the simple. Express yourself in everyday conversations without softening your words for fear of discomfort. Learn to maintain your stance even if someone frowns, because consistency weighs more than empty assent. Another practical tip is to train your mind in silent gratitude towards yourself. Make a mental list of what you did well in the day without expecting others to recognize it. Celebrate your own progress, even if no one notices. When you cultivate this practice, you build a solid foundation of self-respect that doesn't waver with criticism. And remember, it's not about becoming arrogant or insensitive. It's about regaining balance, knowing that your voice and your judgment have a weight that doesn't depend on others. It's also vital to surround yourself with people who value your authenticity and not those who applaud you only when you meet their conditions. Evaluate your relationships. Observe who listens to you when you speak from your truth and who moves away when you no longer fit their mold. These filters are necessary because dignity flourishes in environments where you don't have to disguise yourself. Lastly, practice the discipline of silence. Don't explain everything you do seeking approval. Don't share every step with the hope of receiving a well done. Keep certain things just for you. Enjoy the power of moving forward without witnesses, because the most important recognition is the one that comes from your own consistency. 2. Set boundaries firmly. It's like leaving the door of your house open all night. Anyone can enter, anyone can take what they want, anyone can take away your peace. That's what happens when you don't know how to set boundaries. You become a territory without borders, where others decide what to do with you. And the worst part is not what others take. The worst part is that you allow them to do it. Because without boundaries there is no respect, and without respect there is no dignity. This is a harsh truth. If you don't mark how far others can go with you, others won't do it for you. The problem is that we were taught to confuse boundaries with selfishness. From an early age, it is repeated that saying no is being rude, that distancing yourself is being cold, that defending your space is being arrogant. And you grow up believing that to be good, you always have to give in, always endure, always accept. But Stoicism makes it clear, kindness without firmness becomes weakness, and weakness only attracts abuse. Marcus Aurelius said that the best way to live in harmony with others is to start by living in harmony with yourself. And that means taking care of your energy, protecting your time, and not giving it to anyone who asks for it. Setting boundaries begins with something basic: recognizing your own worth. If you don't recognize it, no one will. Make a list of what you are no longer willing to tolerate, from hurtful comments to demands that drain your energy. When you have it clear, each boundary stops being a whim and becomes a declaration of respect. The second step is consistency, because it is not enough to think it, you have to express it and uphold it. It is useless to say, "Don't talk to me like that," and the next day act as if nothing happened. Each contradiction weakens your voice and teaches the other that your boundaries are negotiable. Another practical tip is to use direct phrases, without embellishments, without long excuses that seek to justify you. "I can't help you with this. I don't agree. I prefer not to attend." Simple phrases that mark your stance without beating around the bush. The simpler you are in expressing it, the more forceful the message will be. And remember, the tone is as important as the words, because a boundary said with insecurity loses its strength. But one said with calm and firmness becomes a wall that no one can cross. It's not about building walls against everyone, but about intelligently selecting who you open up to and how far. Setting boundaries does not destroy relationships, it purifies them. It shows you who respects you and who only used you, who values you and who benefited from your silence. That selection hurts at first, but liberates later, because you stop spending energy on those who don't deserve to be in your life. Finally, remember that every time you set a boundary, you not only protect your dignity, you also educate others on how to treat you. You teach others how far they can go with you, and if you don't, they will decide for you. Leaving the door open is inviting chaos. Closing it firmly is inviting respect. And that is the true strength, not to please everyone, but to keep your border standing, even if the world wants to tear it down. 3. Regain your voice. Imagine one day you wake up and when you speak, no sound comes out. You move your lips, but your voice does not appear. Only silence remains. That is the feeling many carry without realizing it. They live speaking, but not with their voice, but with the one others want to hear. And when you give away your voice, you also give away your essence, because what you say reflects who you are. Losing it is like erasing your name from your own life. Regaining your voice does not mean shouting louder, it means speaking with truth. Stoicism teaches that what you think and what you say should be one, because inconsistency is the root of weakness. When you silence what you know you should express, you betray yourself, and each internal betrayal reduces your dignity. It's not about having an opinion on everything, but about making clear what you think about what does matter, even if it's not liked, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it leaves you in the minority. The first step is to stop softening your message out of fear of rejection. How many times do you end sentences with an "I think," "maybe," "I don't know if I'm wrong," as if you were asking for permission to exist? That kills your authority. Speaking with your voice is to eliminate unnecessary doubt and say what you think firmly, without embellishments. Don't confuse this with imposing, because imposing seeks to dominate, but expressing your truth seeks to be consistent with yourself. The second step is to practice the discomfort of upholding your word. There will be times when what you say does not fit with the majority, and that's the test. The one who needs approval changes their opinion according to the wind. The one who has their own voice keeps it even though a storm blows. That consistency is what shapes respect. Remember that people do not respect those who always agree, they respect those who dare to be clear. Another practical tip is to exercise your voice in small things. Start in everyday conversations. Express what you really want instead of what you think they expect from you. Ask for what you need without disguising it. Say what bothers you without softening it with endless excuses. Each time you do, your voice returns a little more. And don't forget that the voice is not only in words, but also in actions. If you say you value something, but act against it, your voice loses strength, because consistency between what you say and what you do is the basis of respect. Finally, understand that regaining your voice is not an act of rebellion against others. It is an act of loyalty to yourself. Each firm word, each expressed idea, each silence you choose with intention and not with fear, are steps to rebuild dignity. The voice you had lost is still inside you, waiting for you to stop disguising it. When you regain it, you will not only speak differently, you will walk differently, because nothing weighs more than the clarity of someone who no longer asks for permission to be heard. 4. Respect yourself first. There are people who treat themselves as if they were a secondary role in their own life, as if there was always someone more important to attend to, as if their time was worth less than others. It's like inviting everyone to dinner at your home and ending up without a plate for yourself. You serve, smile, please, but in the end, you're left empty. That's the consequence of not respecting yourself first, of always putting others above you, believing it's an act of kindness, when in reality, it's an act of personal abandonment. Self-respect is not a luxury or a whim, it's the foundation of all dignity. Stoicism teaches that you can't give what you don't have. You can't offer value if you don't recognize yourself as valuable. You can't expect healthy relationships if you allow yourself to be treated carelessly. When you don't respect yourself, you send a silent message to the world. Everything is allowed here. And believe me, the world doesn't hesitate to take advantage of that permission. The first step to respect yourself is to recognize your own internal limits. I'm not just talking about saying no to others. I'm talking about saying no to yourself when you sabotage yourself. Not accepting less than what you deserve. Not allowing yourself to justify mistreatment with excuses. Not staying in places that wear down your peace. Self-respect starts in the mirror, in how you talk to yourself, in how you value your decisions, in how you choose what you tolerate. Next, you must learn to prioritize your time. If every minute you give to the demands of others, sooner or later your life ceases to be yours. Respect yourself enough to put on your agenda what really matters to you, even if others don't understand it. Dedicate hours to your growth, your rest, your health, and defend them with the same force with which you would fulfill an obligation to someone else. This act is not selfishness, it's dignity, Another practical tip is to monitor the way you allow yourself to be spoken to. If someone treats you with contempt and you accept it, if someone minimizes your achievements and you smile as if nothing, you're making it clear that you don't need respect. Change that dynamic firmly. Stop hurtful comments. Express your discomfort. Show that you know how much you're worth. Prolonged silence in the face of disrespect only perpetuates abuse. Finally, understand that respecting yourself doesn't mean distancing yourself from the world. It means entering it with more strength. When you are the first to value yourself, you force others to do so as well. And if they don't, then self-respect gives you the courage to push them away without guilt. That's the real power, walking upright, knowing that you don't need to crawl for someone else to accept you. Because by respecting yourself first, you turn your life into a sacred territory where no one enters unless they are willing to value what you are. 5. Practice intelligent forgiveness. Forgiving blindly is like handing over the keys to your house to someone who has already ransacked it once, naively hoping they won't do it again. Misunderstood forgiveness is not a virtue, it's naivety, and it's often confused with weakness. Stoicism teaches that forgiveness is not a blank check for others to repeat the offense. It's a conscious decision to free yourself from the poison of resentment without forgetting the lesson the wound left. That is intelligent forgiveness, the one that lets go of the weight, but at the same time establishes firm boundaries so that the damage does not repeat itself. When you do not forgive, resentment becomes a guest that consumes your energy, occupies your mind, and robs you of peace. But when you forgive without criteria, you become an accomplice to abuse because the other person learns that their actions have no consequences. The balance lies in recognizing that forgiving is not forgetting or always reconciling. It is simply choosing not to carry the emotional poison while maintaining the necessary distance or boundaries to not be hurt again. The first practical advice is to separate internal forgiveness from the external relationship. You can let go of the hatred within you, but that does not mean that you should trust the person who hurt you again. Your dignity requires that clarity, because true forgiveness does not erase memory, it transforms it into wisdom. Ask yourself, what did this wound teach me? What boundaries should I reinforce from now on? This reflection turns the wound into a teacher and forgiveness into a tool for growth. The second piece of advice is not to confuse forgiveness with denial. There are those who say they have forgiven just to avoid facing the pain, but resentment remains hidden, and sooner or later it explodes. Practicing intelligent forgiveness requires facing what happened, recognizing the wound, accepting the pain, and then letting it go. You cannot release what you deny. By accepting, your decision to forgive stops being an excuse and becomes a conscious act of freedom. Another key point is learning to forgive yourself. Often, you carry more guilt for your mistakes than for the wounds that others have left you. Stoicism reminds us that erring is part of the human condition. The important thing is not to sink into guilt, but to correct the course and act better next time. Forgiving yourself does not mean justifying yourself. It means giving yourself the right to continue moving forward without internal chains. Finally, remember that intelligent forgiveness is selective and firm. Not everyone deserves to return to your life. Not everyone deserves a second chance, but you always deserve to live in peace. Forgiveness is an act of self-love before it is a gesture towards others. You don't do it to absolve the other, you do it to free yourself. Because whoever clings to resentment remains a slave to the wound, but whoever practices intelligent forgiveness becomes a master of themselves, strong, serene, and dignified. 6. Break with perfectionism. Perfectionism is like chasing the horizon. You run, you strive, you sweat, but you never reach it. Each step you take seems to bring you closer, but in the end, the line moves further away, and all you achieve is exhaustion. This obsession with wanting everything to be flawless turns into an invisible prison where nothing is enough. Neither what you do, nor what you say, nor what you achieve. And the more you seek perfection, the further you move away from peace. Stoicism teaches that life is not about controlling everything, but about accepting what is under your power and letting go of what is not. The perfectionist wants to control even the uncontrollable, wants every detail to be aligned with an ideal image, and when he fails to achieve it, he punishes himself mercilessly. That's the trap. Perfectionism is not discipline, it's fear in disguise, fear of failing, of being judged, of not being enough. And as long as you continue to obey that fear, your dignity will be chained to the opinion of others. Breaking with perfectionism begins by accepting imperfection as part of life. I'm not talking about complacency. I'm talking about understanding that what's valuable is not doing everything perfectly, but doing it with coherence and consistency. A mistake does not define your value. A failure does not erase your effort. The question you should ask yourself is not whether you did it perfectly, but whether you gave the best you could at that moment with the tools you had. A practical tip is to shift your focus from the outcome to the process. Instead of obsessing over everything being flawless, focus on enjoying the progress, on recognizing the steps you take. The perfectionist sees the stain on the sheet and forgets everything written. You need to train your mind to look at the complete, not just the failure. That broader view is what gives you serenity. It is also key to learn to expose yourself without fear. Publish, share, speak, even if you feel it's not perfect. This practice breaks the dependence on external judgment because you learn that life goes on, that others rarely analyze as harshly as you do yourself. And even if someone criticizes, your strength lies in not stopping. Finally, remember that perfection is an illusion created by comparison. There will always be someone more skilled, faster, or more experienced, and if you seek to compete with that image, you will be doomed to eternal frustration. The Stoic understands that his only real competition is with himself, and that moving one step further today than yesterday is already a victory. Breaking with perfectionism is choosing freedom over obsession, dignity over guilt, real life over the illusion of the ideal, because your value is not in the flawless, it's in the authentic and fascinating. 7. Learn to say no. Saying yes to everything is like trying to fill a broken glass. No matter how much you pour, it always empties. When you live to please, you wear yourself out in awkward silences, in favors you don't want to do, in promises you should never have accepted. In the end, you not only lose time and energy, you lose respect, because whoever never knows how to say no ends up being seen as someone easy to manipulate. That's the harsh reality. The one who never stands up becomes a pawn on others' board. Stoicism reminds us that every decision has a cost, and that your time is the most valuable thing you have. Saying yes without thinking is giving away your life in pieces, and no man or woman worthy can live constantly yielding. Saying no is not arrogance, it's self-control. It's recognizing that you can't handle everything and that your peace is worth more than someone's approval. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly: eliminate what is not essential, and few things wear you out as much as carrying commitments you should never have accepted. The first practical advice is to understand that your no carries more weight than 1,000 false yeses. When you say yes unwillingly, your word loses value, and little by little you become someone who no longer inspires trust. On the other hand, a firm no, said with respect but with conviction, strengthens your voice. Start practicing on small things. Reject a commitment that doesn't contribute to you. Avoid giving unnecessary excuses and observe how your energy starts to free up. Another key step is to eliminate the guilt that comes after the no. You were taught that rejecting is hurting, but in reality, it is an act of honesty. Saying no is fairer than accepting reluctantly and then failing. The one who respects himself is not afraid to discomfort with the truth, because he knows that his dignity cannot be based on always pleasing. An additional tip is to learn to use short and firm phrases. You don't need to justify each refusal with a long speech, because justifying too much conveys insecurity. I can't, I don't want to, it's not for me. These simple words are walls when said clearly. The silence after that no is also part of the strength. Don't rush to soften it so that the other person doesn't feel bad, because by doing so, you become a prisoner again. Finally, remember that every no you give is a yes to yourself. When you decide not to attend a place that drains you, you are saying yes to your rest. When you reject a favor you don't want, you are saying yes to your energy. When you close the door to someone who abuses your time, you are saying yes to your dignity. That is the lesson you cannot forget. Your life cannot be defined by the yeses you give to others, but by the firm no's that give you back the freedom to be consistent with who you are. 8. Stop justifying yourself. Living by justifying yourself is like walking around with a sign hanging around your neck that says, "Sorry for existing." Each word, each action, each decision comes with an unnecessary explanation, as if your right to be yourself had to be approved by someone else. It's a constant drain, an invisible leak of energy that forces you to prove all the time that what you do makes sense. And the worst part is that the more you explain, the less your voice is respected, because excessive justification is interpreted as insecurity. Stoicism teaches that the wise man acts from internal consistency, not from the need to convince the world. Your actions should speak for you. Your life should reflect your principles, and that is enough. When you justify every step, you hand over your power on a platter, because you put others in the role of judges of your existence. Do you really need permission to live as you believe is right? That is the uncomfortable question you must answer. The first step to break this habit is to learn to recognize when you do it. Listen to your own phrases. I did it because... It's just that I had to. I didn't want to, but... Each unnecessary justification is a brick in the wall that encloses you. Start eliminating those crutches and replace them with firm statements. I decided. I prefer. I choose. That difference is small in appearance, but huge in dignity. It is also important to practice consistency between word and action. When your life backs up what you say, you don't need to justify yourself, because the facts speak. If you say you value your time and then defend it with clear boundaries, no one needs an explanation. Respect arises on its own. Excessive justification appears when your actions do not accompany your speech, and that's where strength is lost. A practical exercise is to set a clear boundary with yourself. Decide not to give explanations beyond what is necessary. If you reject an invitation, you don't have to recount your entire schedule. A simple "I can't" or "I don't want to" is enough. If you choose a different path, you don't need to convince everyone why you do it. At first, you will feel uncomfortable, because the habit of justifying yourself is strong. But with practice, you will discover that no one needs as much detail as you thought. To stop justifying yourself does not mean to be arrogant, it means to be free. It means to walk with your head held high, with the certainty that your life does not need permissions or excuses to make sense. When you achieve that, you will discover something powerful. People start to respect more those who do not ask for permission to exist. And that respect begins with you, with the firm decision not to explain what does not require explanation. 9. Accept and feel your pain. Ignoring pain is like covering a deep wound with a band-aid. On the outside, it seems like everything is fine, but inside the infection grows, and sooner or later it brings you down. Many strive to appear strong by hiding their suffering, as if feeling were a sign of weakness, when in reality, the true weakness is pretending it doesn't hurt. Pain does not disappear because you hide it. It transforms into invisible chains that control your life from the shadows. Stoicism never taught to deny pain. On the contrary, it spoke of facing it with dignity. Seneca said that no emotion is dangerous if faced with reason. Pain is inevitable. What makes it an unbearable burden is the resistance to accept it. When you reject it, you feed it. When you face it head-on, you go through it. That is the path to inner freedom. Stop running and start feeling. Accepting your pain does not mean resigning yourself. It means recognizing it as part of the human experience. Each wound brings with it a lesson, but only if you dare to listen to it. Ask yourself, what is this suffering showing me? What part of me needs to grow? What uncomfortable truth am I avoiding? Asking these questions transforms pain into a teacher instead of an enemy. A practical tip is to give yourself space to feel without masks. Allow yourself moments of silence where you don't have to be strong for anyone else, where you can cry, write, reflect, or simply breathe with your pain without trying to disguise it. It's not about getting stuck in sadness. It's about making room for it so it doesn't have to scream from the shadows. Ignored pain turns into anxiety, anger, or emptiness, while accepted pain turns into clarity. It is also essential not to turn pain into identity. There are those who use it as an excuse to justify or victimize themselves. Feeling does not mean chaining yourself, it means processing in order to let go. Every time you repeat, "I suffered," as a banner, you keep the wound open. The correct attitude is to say, "Yes, it hurt, but I got up with more clarity." This change of language is a reminder that pain was a step, not your destination. Accepting and feeling your pain is a way to regain dignity, because you do not run away from yourself or hide behind false smiles. On the contrary, you walk forward with scars that tell your story, and with a strength that no one who has not gone through their own suffering can understand. And at that moment, you are no longer a slave to the wound. You are master of your life, because you learned that feeling does not make you weak, it makes you human, and accepting it makes you strong. 10. Live with dignity. Walking without dignity is like dragging someone else's shadow. You move forward, but it's not you who decides the direction. It's the weight of guilt, fear, and approval that guides your steps. You live bent over, with your back hunched under the demands of others, and the worst part is that you end up forgetting what it feels like to stand tall. Dignity is not about empty pride or pretending to be strong. It's the silent foundation that supports your entire life, the cornerstone that reminds you that you deserve respect, first from yourself and then from others. Stoicism made it clear. You can't control what others think, say, or do, but you can choose how you behave in response to it. And living with dignity means just that, acting according to your principles, even though the world wants to drag you down. It's not about pleasing, it's not about demeaning yourself, it's not about justifying yourself. It's about standing firm, even when the pressure invites you to bend. The one who lives without dignity does not live, he only survives under the gaze of others. The first piece of advice to regain your dignity is to make decisions that reflect your inner worth. Don't accept jobs, relationships, or commitments that force you to betray who you are. Every time you say yes to something that goes against you, you're giving away a piece of your freedom. Ask yourself, does what I'm doing honor me or degrade me? If the answer is the latter, then your dignity demands an immediate change. Another key point is to maintain consistency between what you think, say, and do. You can't talk about respect if you tolerate constant offenses. You can't demand honesty if you justify your own lies. You can't seek value if you keep hiding your fears. Dignity is not built with speeches, it's built with repeated actions every day, in the small and the big, in public and in private. It's also essential to learn to let go of what doesn't deserve you. Many times, you lose dignity by clinging to relationships that wear you down, or to places that have nothing left to offer you. The fear of loneliness or of what others will say keeps you tied down, but the real strength lies in walking lightly, even if the path is empty for a while. Self-respect is worth more than any imposed company. Finally, live with dignity, remembering that it's not about pretending to be perfect, but about firmly holding on to your essence. There will be moments of pain, of stumbling and of mistakes, but none of them can take away your worth if you choose to stay true to who you are. Dignity is not negotiated, it's not borrowed, it doesn't depend on the external gaze. It's cultivated within, in the way you talk to yourself, in the way you decide, in the strength with which you walk. Because when you live with dignity, no matter how hard the storm, you can always lift your head and look straight ahead, knowing that your life is still yours. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.